Welcome, everybody. We're going to talk today about instructional walkthrough feedback, specifically about providing feedback in just a 5 to 15-minute visit to a classroom. That can be challenging, and so we're going to learn some tips and tools and talk a little bit about some research behind that. So we're just going to jump in. As Mark said, I work for Hardin County Schools. You can see there my list of many jobs that I've held in the school district over that 25 years. My longest tenure was as an elementary school principal for 12 years at Lakewood Elementary. But I'm currently the Director of Education Development and Student Support for Hardin County Schools and oversee the Certified Evaluation Plan, our Teacher Mentorship Program, and our Grow Your Own program as some of my job responsibilities. In my spare time, I do enjoy spending time with my two children there. And we have a farm in Hodgenville, Kentucky, where we do beekeeping and raise chickens. So just a little information about me there on the side. I also do work for Western Kentucky University in the Educational Administration program and help teach future principals. And feedback is the topic of one of the courses I teach. So some of the information does come from some of the books that we use in that class. So my first question for everybody today, if you'll use the chat box, is to think about your experience giving feedback and as a principal or a supervisor, when you're doing a walkthrough, what words, images, or feelings come to mind about giving other people feedback? So if you can just put a couple words in the chat box real quickly, then we can kind of run through those. Asking questions to clarify and not assuming things. That's definitely one of the things we'll talk about today. The good old sandwich approach, right? A positive sandwich, try to start and end with something nice and put the questions and reflections in the middle. Encouragement and clarification. Connecting to a current initiative. Absolutely, Beth. That's very important. All right, so the next question asks us to think about how have we felt, what words did we feel, and images and feelings come to mind when you've received feedback. So you can think back to your time in the classroom to answer that part, or you can think about the feedback you receive as a principal. Because I know in our district, our superintendent does a really good job of giving feedback to our principals, but I see some words on there already that definitely ring true for teachers. Offended and nervous. Definitely makes a lot of people nervous. Lack of specificity is a definite thing. Wanted to know thoughts and areas to improve in as a teacher, definitely. Not specific. I feel like I got a lot of not specific feedback as a teacher, Rob. I agree with that. A lack of content knowledge. Lack of support to grow, definitely. All right, you guys are right on target with some of the things we're going to talk about today. So hopefully we'll be able to jump into some of those in a little bit more detail as we go through here. So these are just some quotes. We need people who will give us feedback because that's how we improve. And let's be real, feedback more often than not is received as criticism, and that does not help us learn. So we got to first change that mindset a little bit about feedback. So one of the first things we have to know about the people we're giving feedback is what stage they're in developmentally as a teacher so that we know what kind of feedback to give them. This particular chart is from Leading Change Together, and it's by Drago Severson and Bloom DeStefano, and it is from the textbook we use for the course I teach at WKU. So this one just talks about, everyone's in these different stages as they go through their profession, and that gives some tips for the kinds of feedback. So it gives examples in there. I'm not going to read this slide to you necessarily because you can go back and read it later, but it just talks about different types of feedback at different times. This is a different model of the same kind of concept, and this is from Robin Jackson's work on Never Underestimate Your Teachers. And this is really the one that kind of guides the work we do here in our county. So we try to give feedback based on these 4 levels of understanding or 4 types of feedback. So we have some teachers who need diagnostic feedback. They don't understand the key concepts of effective practice. So it should help them identify the root cause of why something is or is not working, clarify the expectations, and identify strategies that could guide their future work. Then we have good old prescriptive feedback, which is it should provide instructional options for them to try next and help them gain the knowledge to implement that practice effectively. But the most commonly used feedback in our district that we've done through analyzing all the different feedback we give to our teachers is descriptive feedback. This tells them what they did well and where there's some room for growth. Like we have a lot of people that love kind of that sandwich method that we talked about a minute ago. They love to start with a positive, end with a positive, and maybe there'll be like one little strategy kind of tucked in there in the center. And while this is appropriate feedback for pretty much a seasoned teacher who has mastery of their content, it may not be the best kind of feedback to give a brand new teacher who's trying to learn those essential strategies that they need to know. And then there's micro feedback, and this is the kind for the teacher who is already a master teacher and very, very good at what they do. And this one's hard to give as a principal unless you also have a lot of strategies in your toolbox, or you have a lot of experience teaching at that level. So this one, you kind of give some questions to help them reflect, some small nuances or tweaks that can help them improve their already good performance. This is just another way to look at the exact same information if you like a flow chart better. Um, One of the things that we do in our district is we have all of our walkthrough forms in our evaluation system. We contract with Power School, so we use the Perform platform, and all of our walkthrough forms are in there. A lot of our walkthrough forms have check boxes though, and you probably have had walkthroughs in the past, or you've given walkthroughs where you're going through a list of initiatives or strategies that your district definitely wants to make sure are covered. And so we're going in there making sure, do they have a learning target? Yes or no? So we check mark. Are they asking students questions, and what level are the questions? And you put some check marks. But the most important feedback that we give on the walkthrough form is not actually found in a checkbox. That's nice for analyzing initiatives in the district, but it doesn't really help the teacher grow. The most important feedback we give is the written feedback that causes them to reflect on their practice. So the first step as an administrator is you have to create a culture where feedback is valued. Some of us mentioned that um, we kind of felt nervous about feedback, like when somebody comes to watch us teach, or we felt like it wasn't always something that would help us get better. Maybe it was just that checklist. So as a principal, your first task is to have a deep discussion with your teachers about feedback and what kind of feedback they're looking for. So when I had that conversation with my teachers, I actually started with the data that was on the impact survey because there are a couple questions on feedback and coaching in the impact survey that teachers take for our state every couple of years. So we started by looking at those questions on the survey, and they showed that at my particular school that the teachers didn't feel like they were getting effective feedback. So the first thing we needed to do was define what is effective feedback. What are you looking for when an administrator comes to your classroom and is giving you feedback on your instruction? Ironically, what they really wanted was just a bunch of positives about their teaching. So, while that's important too, and definitely I needed to increase the number of positive suggestions I give to people, we really got into a discussion about how feedback is meant to help us grow. And so the next session that we had, we went through all of the district walkthrough forms and talked about what each question is looking for. But then we really spent time talking about that written feedback that I give and like how a lot of times I'll ask a question and I would like for them to respond to that question. So we just had to set that expectation as a school that this is what we're going to do when we get feedback. And it's not a negative thing. It's not something to be nervous about. It's just an opportunity for all of us to grow and get better as educators. So we wanted to understand how they felt. We want to communicate the purpose of it, set expectations, and then share the walkthrough forms with them so they know what is being looked for. Again, with the responses to questions in our platform here in our district, because we use PowerSchool, like there's a place in there where you can ask a question and then they can respond in PowerSchool. But before we had that, we used Google Forms, of course, to collect walkthrough data, and then we just asked them to email those responses. So there's a lot of different ways to get the responses back from people when you have a question posed in your feedback. So a lot of us talked about making sure that feedback is positive, and that is an important aspect of feedback and the one that my staff wanted most from me. Um, but words of affirmation is not really my love language, so it took me a little practice to get there. But it is important to build people's emotional bank account. So we always want to start the year off, and I typically would do this, at the beginning of the school year and then right again after winter break, is try to go through every classroom in the school and give everybody at least one positive walkthrough. Find something going well in their classroom, and we use the 30-second feedback method from Mr. Rutherford. And if you've never seen that method before, this link right here will take you to a quick little description of what that looks like. And then it has some examples down here of 30-second feedback that you could see in a classroom. So 30-second feedback always starts with a cushion. It's kind of got that sandwich method going on. It shouldn't take you more than 30 seconds to write it, is why it's called this. It's supposed to be a quick, easy form of feedback. So you start with a cushion, and your cushion could always be the same. I enjoyed being in your classroom today, or thanks for having me in for a few minutes. And then you're going to find something specific that they were doing or teaching that led to a student outcome of learning. So when you knelt down and worked with Laura to correct her paper, she focused and gave extra effort in response to your attention. So you have to make a direct connection to when this happened, it caused this. You're essentially writing a cause effect statement. And then you close it with a tag that really worked, or that was effective, or nice move, or great job, or whatever it may be. But it's always something that you should be able to write it in 30 to 60 seconds. Generally, I would only be in the classroom maybe 5 minutes to catch something like this that was really positive in nature. So this is a great way to give those 30-second feedback that's positive and helps build up that emotional bank account. Okay. And then again, you always want to frame feedback as working together to improve their work. And again, we're just trying to get better as learners. We're trying to grow. If you're ever interested in learning a little bit more about feedback and the importance of that positivity and building that culture, there's a really great podcast from Accelerate Your Performance called Master the Art of Feedback. And the host of that one are Janet Pilcher and KK Owens. And they really go into some great depth about feedback and how important it is that you give that to your staff, that it is specific, and that you do start with those positive comments. I'm going to skip over this video down here. This is just a quick little video about emotional bank accounts and how important it is to give people positives, because we get so many negatives on a daily basis. And so if we don't counterset those with some, or offset those with some positives, then it can really start to bring people down, obviously. So now we're going to get into one of our tools that we're using in our district to help with the language of feedback. So we're saying, yes, we want to give people positive feedback, but we also want that feedback to help them grow. So what we did in our district is we created this this lovely chart here, which is actually based on someone else's work, and I forgot to cite it in here, so I'll definitely go back and add that as soon as I can figure out what website I found it on. But this helped guide our work as far as giving feedback. So definitely everyone in our district was really good at the valuing feedback and giving people those positives. And we've been practicing the 30-second feedback, so we had a lot of practice with that. But the things that we were struggling with were the clarifying questions, maybe some uncovering some possibilities, or some suggestion stems. So we found this tool that has all these great stems on there to try to help us when we're in the classroom and we're trying to come up with the right words to say something, where it doesn't just say, you need to fix this, essentially. So we were trying to find some positive ways to frame the feedback and just give us a word bank essentially to use as we're in the classrooms. So what we did is we took this and we actually made it into two different formats. You can see here on the left side of the screen, we made, maybe your right side, I don't know, on the laptop, we made little stickers and they're really, really tiny. So if you have really bad eyesight, this may not be the way to go. But if you're just looking for a few words, they're pretty handy. That's the one that's actually on my laptop, and mine is not a sticker. I just taped it on because I was trying to get the right size to order for the stickers. So we did order actual stickers for people, for the principals' laptops and assistant principals and instructional coaches. Or if they didn't like that tiny little print, we took that sheet we were just on, we put it on cardstock, laminated it, and put those on some rings. So if you'd rather carry around your feedback, you could do it that way. But then we have some, fairly techie people who just wanted to have that tab open so they also have access to the same document that you guys have been looking at. So there's your instructional feedback language, and that's how one of the tools that we use in our district to help us get better at feedback. The other tool that we've been using is actually practicing feedback with other administrators. So if it's the principal and assistant principal, they're in the same building, then once a month, we're encouraging them to do some walkthroughs together, look at the kinds of feedback they're giving to one another. We can run reports from our system of the feedback statements that they're giving to teachers, and they can go through and analyze those. Analyze the number of walkthroughs they're doing in each teacher's classrooms, but we're giving them opportunity in that building to practice that, to have those conversations. But another layer to that is when our principals get together once a month, we actually watch a video of the same lesson and we pull out one of our walkthrough forms for that set of criteria, and then we discuss what feedback would you give to this teacher after viewing, this very small section of this lesson? So, we have banks of video lessons from across the district where it's the entire lesson, but a walkthrough is only 10 to 15 minutes. So we watch like 10 minutes of the video and we're saying, based on this 10 minutes, what feedback would you give this teacher? What questions would you ask? What positives would you have? And practicing together and having those conversations is really what helps build people's their sense of confidence with giving feedback to teachers that's meaningful. And teachers do want feedback offered in meaningful, non-threatening ways. So you do have to begin with something positive. You want to give a description of what needs improvement, offer guidance on how to make improvements, and then express confidence in their success. So one of the things, like I said, we do it with assistant principals specifically in our district, but also with the principals on occasion, is we analyze their feedback. So we print those statements that they've had and we say, does your feedback meet this criteria? Does it begin with something positive, describe what needs improvement, etc.? And then if it doesn't, how could we have rewritten this feedback in order for it to meet that criteria? So that just practicing that together is what helps us get through that process. So, questions, because that is the end of our slide deck. So we're going to jump back over here.
There's a question, Shelley, in the slide deck. Where do you get the videos that you all watch together?
So in our district, we are fortunate to have a community television program, and she actually makes videos of our teachers in our classrooms teaching. So that really helps us out as far as that goes. But I will say that, on YouTube, there are some great videos of teachers teaching. A lot of times you just have to find one that matches what you're doing. I will say that we started out watching a video from the internet. It wasn't from someone in our district, and it was kind of a mediocre lesson. And that one, they were all confident with giving feedback to that kind of a teacher that needs some suggestions for strategies. But what they really struggled with was giving feedback to their superstar teachers, the ones that have it all going on. Like, how do you help this really great teacher improve? So, that way you can watch those and then have those deep discussions about how would you help this really great teacher improve. Any other questions?
There were some questions about the slides. The slides are linked in the EdCamp grid. So if you just click on this session in the EdCamp grid and go down under resources, the slides are already linked there for you.
Yes, sir, they are. And if anybody has trouble accessing anything, just feel free to shoot me an email. But I think I've set everything up to anyone can view. So 30-second feedback needs access. We'll fix that right now.
And there's a question about do people have access to the instructional feedback language chart that you put on there, but that you showed?
Yes, that one is set up for anyone to view. So everyone should be able to access that one. And if you need that one at a good size to make stickers or to make the cardstock, you can always send me an email. I think we have a resource center in our district as well that makes all those for us. So she's actually created them where they're easy to print for stickers and such. So I can definitely have her send those to us if anyone would find those interesting or helpful. Because you do have to change obviously the size of them and such to fit on things. So. Any other questions about feedback or? Well, thank you
This was
guys
very
for,
helpful. I feel like
well, good.
I feel like I say the same things over and over, and I want to learn how to differentiate that a little bit better. So thank you for this information, ways to start my questions or to give my feedback so that I can do a better job of doing that a variety of ways. So thank you for those
Yes,
kind of conversation starters.
absolutely. That was always my thing too. I felt like I said the same thing over and over again, always using the same words. So it does help to have just a list to pick from. So I'm glad that's helpful for you. All right. Well, you guys have my contact information, and if anybody ever needs anything about feedback or uh, and not just for walkthroughs, but even for evaluation purposes, just feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to provide whatever resources we have.
Thanks, Shelley, for sharing and presenting. Everybody have a great rest of the EdCamp conference. At 11 o'clock, we're back in the main room for the midday keynote. Okay.